Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Stewart Muir, Executive Director of the ResourceWorks Society, his website, resourceworks.com. Welcome back to the show, Stewart.
Thank you, Jim.
Stewart, the courts again have ruled against a challenge of the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Can you give us an outline of that?
Well, this is probably the oldest headline that we've seen. You know, Trans Mountain lawsuit launched because for the past few years, in fact, the length of 2 world wars, there has been an ongoing legal fight by different parties to stop the pipeline from happening and prevent Canada from getting the top dollar for its most valuable export. And finally, last week, that struggle came to an end, which is good for every Canadian because we need that pipeline. We need the best infrastructure, the safest, the one that creates the most jobs for Canada. We need that in the ground and in service real soon. So the Supreme Court of Canada was asked to look at a challenge to the pipeline. They said, look, the lower court, the Federal Court of Appeal, ruled on this back in February. It was a unanimous ruling. Those justices said there's no basis for the current challenges to this. All the accommodation has been done. A lot of it, in this case, is to do with Indigenous consultation. And after, I think it's 120 groups that are supportive of the pipeline, but there's 2 left out of all those, or 2 or maybe 3, that are opposing it on legal grounds. And those groups were told, look, everything's been done. This pipeline's going ahead. The Supreme Court refused to hear a final appeal, and that's the highest court in the land. So that part of it's over. You know, as I've been saying, though, I don't think it should be seen as a loss for the First Nations that have been protesting it, because it's due in part to their demands that it be the best pipeline, that any flaws that they claim exist be addressed, that we have what is now surely the best pipeline anywhere in the world. I mean, what project? I say that because, I mean, that's not just a flip statement. I mean that because there's no pipeline anywhere in the world that has been subjected to so much regulatory oversight, that has had so many demands placed on it, requirements. There's 170 or so conditions that must be met. If even one condition is not met, that thing isn't operating. And so that's why I think we can say that, look, every conceivable issue, it's been addressed through engineering or regulatory changes or management interventions of different kinds. And so the pipeline is still several years away from being finished and in operation. But this is truly a milestone, and I think we can look back in future on mid-2020 as the time that the legal corner was turned. There's probably going to be some ground skirmishes, so to speak, where legal initiatives are launched against, you know, certain kind of localized aspects of this. But for the most part, this thing is solved. So it's a good day for Canada.
Do we know how much money governments like Burnaby City Council and the provincial government of BC spent fighting this thing?
Well, I think Burnaby disclosed their spending. It was like $1 million to fight it because they had a couple of mayors who decided it would become a feature of their mayoralty brand to be seen as opposing a project that has existed in their community for a very long time, that creates a lot of employment and benefits. You know, these mayors, they drive around in cars. They have residents who drive around in cars who depend on ships that use fuels to bring goods to them. You know, they get all kinds of benefits from the responsible use of oil, and yet they protest it when Canada is the one supplying the oil. So there's kind of interesting irony that we have local mayors who seem to be quite supportive of Saudi Arabia, Russia, developing their hydrocarbon assets, but when it comes to benefits close to home that actually stimulate good things for their community members, they're against that. It's a puzzling thing, and they had lots of money to spend on that. Maybe less money to spend on swimming pools and fixing the roads when they have a legal crusade. I think at the BC government level, it's harder to discern what the numbers are. I think they've probably for some time now stopped spending a lot of money on legal fees. That would have been earlier on. It looks to me as if there's not a lot of litigation. There's a couple of things that the BC government attached to and initiated in terms of opposition. But, the drumbeat now is, look, let's have an economic recovery in British Columbia that is attuned to the realities of our economy. The reality is we have a lot of natural resource activities that allow us to live the way we do. That, it's when we export things, when we sell things to foreigners and get their dollars or their pesos or their yen into our economy, that's when we really have an economy. If you don't have that coming in, you don't have an economy. Well, you've got some bartering, and that's about it. But the real economy requires there to be exports, and in Canada we export predominantly natural resource products in the goods that we export. We also export lots of services too that are really valuable. But when it comes to the things, it's crude oil, it's lumber, it's coal, copper, stuff like that.
We'll have more with Stewart Muir right after this.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Cypress Development Corp. is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cypress Development Corp. trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Stewart Muir. Stewart, you have a project coming up at the end of the week that's hopefully going to help us have a strong recovery. Can you tell us about it?
Well, yes, I can. We have a project. It's called the Real Jobs, Real Recovery Task Force. It's a coalition. We have more than 25 organizations across Canada from many different fields that are inclusive of, but not limited to, the natural resource field. We are working with unions and local municipalities and First Nations who are all concerned about the direction of the national economy. We're going to have some numbers up this week, the financial update federally, that based on early speculation by a number of learned economists suggests to me that Canada's looking at some tough times, some challenges fiscally to following the enormous spending that we've seen on social programs. And I'm not saying that spending is wrong, but I think what we're recognizing is that when the bill comes due, you have to make sure you've got the solvency and the financial ability to pay your bills. Just like the bills come in the mail to your house for the country, the bills do come and have to be paid. So as we see this emerge, I think there is a building consensus that as we have a environmentally sound recovery, one that respects the needs for Canada to be a leader in terms of providing responsible benefits to its citizens and residents, you've got to have some purpose and resolve in order to do things. And I think we have, right now, you've probably been hearing about the green recovery. I'm a big fan of green recovery. We need to make sure that our industries are as green as they can be, and that's how we can depend on them to be there for us. But I think you could also see there's some voices in the chorus who are trying to affect the decisions of the Prime Minister and the federal government to convince them that we don't need the industries that have been the foundation of Canada's economic success for generations. What I'm talking about there, of course, is the industries like mining and forestry and oil and gas, the activities needed to get those products to their markets, whether those markets are in Canada or in the U.S. or across the world. All of those things are foundational to our success. And yet, I think it can be hard to see, because if you live in downtown Toronto or Montreal or Vancouver, you probably just don't get out very much. You're not driving through Fort St. John or Fort McMurray or the northern boreal forest of Quebec on a daily basis. Very few people get to see up close and talk to the folks who are doing that, the work to develop forestry and mining and oil and gas. And if you do that, like I do, I'm out there all the time, you realize that we have got the best people in the world developing our resources, making sure it's done safely, making sure that our pretty fierce regulations that exist in every province, territory, and federally are being applied so that, the land is protected. If you see this reliance and want to communicate to those who live in the cities where all the votes are, and I think where a lot of the political work done by those in elected office, it tends to focus on where the concentrations of people and votes are. That's just the way things are. And so it's very, very important that those people see where the good things in life come from. The fact that we can be this country that is, despite being 40 million people, sounds like a big number. It's actually, of course, a very small number when you're talking about nations like India, China, with, they're talking, of course, into billions. So we have to do what we have in our power if we're to have a sound, stable, strong economy over the long term and deal with climate. We've got right now, I think there's often heard this idea that we need to get out of certain industries that have got perceived issues with environmental performance that are claimed to be not reconcilable with our goals. Of course, I'm thinking about the energy assets that we've got, any sort of hydrocarbons or so-called fossil fuels that exist. But because 80% of the world's energy comes from hydrocarbons, the idea that there's this switch, we're going to switch off using 80% of our energy source overnight. The transition to a more diversified energy ecosystem is one that is going to take decades. It's actually already underway. And truth be told, we're doing a pretty good job in BC. 95% plus of the electricity we use is renewable. And there's probably the vast majority of countries in the world would be absolutely overjoyed if their situation was the same. But most of them are using a lot of fossil fuels, natural gas and coal and other fuels to operate their energy system. So right away we've got this big advantage that we tend not to celebrate, but it is actually pretty amazing. And yes, there is lots of other fuels that we consume that we see industry aspiring to look for ways to green up what they produce. And that's one of the biggest stories out there. And I think we should probably get into that a little bit, Jim.
Well, BC, for example, has a 200-year plus proven supply of natural gas. Isn't that one of the kind of things that we have to get out there while the world still wants it?
Yeah, the world needs it. And, if you look at the United States, they've achieved significant emissions reductions over the past few years simply by moving to natural gas. And yet, you've got some people advocating in Canada, and this is really confusing, stop natural gas. Well, wait a minute. why would you stop using natural gas if it's the one and only fuel that has allowed the world to achieve very significant emissions reductions? Are you in favor of more reductions while saying that you want fewer? I mean, it's just utterly confusing. What we really need is to get Canadian natural gas to parts of the world that are crying out for lower carbon sources of fuel. It's not debatable. It's simply what these countries want. It's as if only Canada signed the Paris Agreement on climate and all the other countries are just off in some other universe. Well, the fact is every country that signed on to it, which is almost every country in the world, is engaged in their own struggle. And no country has got unlimited options. No one has a magic wand anywhere in the world. And that's why we've got countries like Japan and Korea that are lining up to get LNG, liquefied natural gas, from Canada because they know it's how they can green up their economies. And yet there's some people in Canada who want to stop that. It's just bizarre, frankly. So that's just one part of the reality of the energy transition over time. Another thing we need to see more of is crude oil from Canada to parts of the world that are seeking desirable inputs. There's news out of Indonesia. They're building I think it's a $50 billion refinery there at a time when you see all these headlines, oil is dead, that kind of thing. Well, oil's clearly not dead. There's an enormous population in the world, far, far, far bigger than the Canadian population, of countries that are only emerging into the middle class existence that we've taken for granted here for generations. It's becoming the norm. I don't think those countries, whether one wishes it to be or wishes it not to be, it doesn't matter. I don't think these countries will be denied their trajectory into a status of life quality similar to what is enjoyed in Canada. They won't be denied that. No one can make that happen. They're seizing what they can do. So those who, like Canada, are investing in things like carbon capture and sequestration. We're investing in the hydrogen economy. We've got the resource base to be able to be world-class innovators in those areas. So the idea that we should shut that down and deny the world the innovation that we can have is something that you would only advocate for if you didn't care about the environment. And that's why I find it so strange that there are people saying Canada shouldn't be able to innovate in natural gas and oil because we don't want it at all. Just shut her down. Well, that's really one of the most destructive statements that you could make. And yet people who call themselves environmentalists are making that. So I think it's time to sort of, enrich the conversation, have a broader set of people talking about this and make sure that as very important decisions are made in the near future, that we come out on the side of an approach to energy transition that works for everyone, for working Canadians. We've got, we're trying to figure out how many, but we think about 3 million Canadians have joined our coalition on real jobs and real recovery through our members and supporters. And that is First Nations and local municipalities and whole industries are speaking out in favor of this. Labor unions are saying, yes, we want to be part of this. So we've got millions of people who are saying, hold on a sec, let's make sure that we include the economic engine of Canada in any discussions about its economy. Wouldn't that be a good idea? So that's what we're trying to do.
We'll have more with Stewart Muir right after this.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Stewart Muir. Stewart, doesn't Canada still have, as we try to recover our economy, these interprovincial trade barriers that cost consumers and business billions of dollars a year? Shouldn't they get rid of them?
Yeah, they definitely should. I have a friend who owns a microbrewery in Vancouver who finds it easier to export his products to a European customer than to the other side of the country, which makes no sense. We've got to deal with that. It's adding costs. It's preventing Canadians from enjoying their own goods and forcing us to import things from foreign countries that we don't need to because we have them available in the country. And that means we have less ability to buy things that we really need, that we can't make ourselves. We can't make an iPhone. We can't grow bananas or oranges. That's what we should be spending our foreign currency on. We shouldn't be spending it to buy, to import things that we could be easily making in Canada. It makes no sense.
I mean, I recall the giant court battle for Moosehead beer to finally be sold in BC. Most little companies that are like your microbreweries can't fight court battles to get their product across the country.
Yep, that's right. I think it speaks to the nature of our federation. Every year around this time in normal years, this is when you see the annual gathering of the premiers, first ministers conferences happen. The energy and resource ministers would have been meeting in Whitehorse in a couple of weeks for their annual conference on their issues. Well, they're not going to be doing that live. It'll be by some sort of video conference, I guess. But at these events, it's really hard for them to come to any sort of broad accord on any issue, and that's the structural reality of the Canadian Federation. It takes a lot of goodwill, for premiers. When anything comes out of there that's truly substantive, like the Kelowna Accord on Health years back, it's because there's been a broad recognition that they've got to take action. And, at any given point in time, to have that degree of willful collaboration is just very difficult. And, if we had a more centralized state and Ottawa had powers to do things, it would be a very different country we live in. It's unfortunately one of the complications of a federal system. I think there's a lot of other benefits that come from having the looser federalism that we have. Unfortunately, the trade barriers are part of the mix. But I do wish, like many others in business and industry, wish that this could be solved.
How can people participate or get more information on Real Recovery, Real Jobs?
Yeah, Real Jobs, Real Recovery is going to be launching this week. There will be a website coming out. We'll talk about it next time. We're going to spend the summer broadening this conversation. We want to make sure that every Canadian has the opportunity to be heard, and make sure that our leaders in Ottawa have a chance to get the information that we're pulling together. We have a lot of bright minds who are volunteering their time and efforts to help us understand. So keep an eye on things. We'll be out there talking about it.
Stewart, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you, Jim.
My guest has been Stewart Muir, Executive Director of the ResourceWorks Society. His website, resourceworks.com. You can find Stewart on Twitter at SJMuir. If you have any questions for Stewart or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter at HowStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at talkdigitalnetwork.com. HowStreet.com Radio is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.